testimony for the committee. Do you wish to make an opening statement?
Yes, sir, I do.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Lois Lerner, and I'm the Director of Exempt Organizations at the Internal Revenue Service. I have been a government employee for over 34 years. I initially practiced law at the Department of Justice and later at the Federal Election Commission. In 2001, I moved to the IRS to work in the Exempt Organizations Office. And in 2006, I was promoted to be the director of that office. Exempt Organizations oversees about 1.6 million tax-exempt organizations and processes over 60,000 applications for tax exemption every year. As director, I'm responsible for about 900 employees nationwide and administer a budget of almost $100 million. My professional career has been devoted to fulfill responsibilities of the agencies for which I have worked, and I am very proud of the work that I have done in government. On May 14th, the Treasury Inspector General released a report finding that the Exempt Organizations Field Office in Cincinnati, Ohio, used inappropriate criteria to identify for further review applications from organizations that plan to engage in political activity, which may mean that they did not qualify for tax exemption.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Brady is recognized for.
When were you told about the problems with the Lerner emails?
I was
February?
Told, pardon? In
When were
February,
you
I was
told?
told that they had discovered there was an issue with her email
In February?
in February.
Why did you choose to withhold that information from this congressional investigation?
I had no intention of withholding that information. As I've stated, our plan was to investigate and find out what the details were. At that point, we did not know whether there had been a crash that had affected her emails or not.
Right.
As
You
I noted,
just testified that you gave your agency 3 weeks to determine if it could be retrievable or not. They weren't successful. So, giving you the benefit of the doubt, in March, you knew these emails were not available. Why didn't you inform this congressional investigation then?
as I told you, my goal was to, in fact, determine all of the facts so we could give you a full report. As I noted earlier this week, we provided.
You informed the Treasury in.
Do I get to answer the question?
Could the witness answer the question?
You know, regular order, Mr. Levin. The gentleman from Texas has the time, and he is questioning appropriately. So please, no more interruptions.
Regular order allows a witness to answer a question.
Regular order allows a witness to conduct his questioning as he sees fit. This committee has given broad latitude to members of both parties to do that.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary
inquiry. To Mr. Brady.
Mr. Chairman,
Brady will continue.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman will state his parliamentary inquiry.
Under the rules of the House, every member has 5 minutes to post questions to the witness, and the witness is given an opportunity and a right to respond. Is the chairman saying that the witness does not have a right to respond to the question?
The gentleman has had plenty of time to respond. That is not a parliamentary inquiry. Mr. Brady has time.
Mr. Chairman, my question is, does the witness have a right to respond to the question?
The gentleman has not stated a parliamentary inquiry. The gentleman from Texas.
On that same day, the Department of Justice launched an investigation into the matters described in the Inspector General's report. In addition, members of this committee have accused me of providing false information when I responded to questions about the IRS processing of applications for tax exemption. I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations, and I have not provided false information to this or any other congressional committee.
You knew in March.
Start again with the question.
Yet you withheld the information from this congressional investigation. And in May, you assured this committee that all of Ms. Lerner's emails would be provided to us, yet you knew that that was not possible.
No, in fact, I knew that, in fact, we would provide you all the Lois Lerner emails that we had.
You already knew in March they were not retrievable. A, you didn't inform the congressional investigation. B, 2 months later you told us you would provide all the emails without limitations. And you knew you didn't have them.
By March, I did not know that they were not retrievable, and in fact, we have retrieved 24,000 of those emails.
That was the case. You knew. And in April, your agency informed Treasury about the problem, and Treasury agreed with you that Congress should be told as soon as it was able to. Yet you didn't provide the information, and then you assured us you would provide all the emails without limitation, with no mention that you then knew 2-3 months into this that they weren't retrievable.
As noted, and I think your record should make it clear, all of this issue is a result of our providing you a public and fulsome document about this matter. So we have not been hiding it
Mr.
from
Commissioner, sending a letter months after you knew the emails were supposedly lost, withholding the information from the investigation. You were aware there was a congressional investigation.
I was
correct?
aware there was an investigation.
So you withheld the information.
We did not withhold the information.
You misled Congress in
have
May when you said those emails would be provided.
We have provided you the information, and it turns out you've had the information for some time.
Mr. Commissioner, you did not tell me under oath that you told us in February and March and April and May that the information was lost. That was just what you said. Tell us that again. That
In
we knew
February, March, I did not know if any information was lost.
Yet, your agency had already in April communicated with Treasury Department about the problem. In the letter we have from Treasury says, we agreed with the IRS that it should inform Congress as soon as it is able. That is the letter today that exactly disputes what you just told us under oath. Exactly disputes it.
That letter from Treasury reveals and provides to you all of the Lois Lerner emails so that there is no issue that any Lois Lerner email
Mr.
provided to anyone
Fitzpaine,
outside.
Assistant Secretary for Legislative Affairs, quote, Treasury agreed with the IRS that it should inform Congress as soon as it was able. Yet you did not.
We actually have provided you the information. My goal was
You had not provided us any information.
Well,
in
then
fact, we didn't learn till last week and then this week that you had supposedly lost the emails, not just from Ms. Lerner, but other persons of interest in IRS.
There is no evidence that any of those emails have been lost either. And in fact, as I said earlier, my process has been to make sure that we had all of the
Mr.
facts when we
Commissioner,
provided them to you so that, in fact,
why, at this point, why should anyone believe you? The IRS denied for 2 years targeting of Americans based on their political beliefs. That wasn't the truth. They said it was a few rogue agents in Cincinnati. That wasn't the truth. You said you were targeting liberal organizations. That wasn't the truth. And then you assured us you would provide us all the emails in May, and that wasn't the truth. And today, you're telling us out of thousands of IRS computers, the one that lost the emails was the person of interest in an ongoing congressional investigation. And that isn't the truth either. This is the most corrupt and deceitful IRS in the history.
And while I would very much like to answer the committee's questions today, I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing. After very careful consideration, I've decided to follow my counsel's advice and not testify or answer any of the questions today.
I believe that in both spirit and substance, our tax system has come to be un-American. Death and taxes may be inevitable, but unjust taxes are not.
This small booklet includes the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. This is a document that every citizen should read. It's a document which freed an entire nation. This is the Internal Revenue Code, and this document, and the unlawful application of this document by the Internal Revenue Service has enslaved the nation that this document attempted to free.
You terrorize, you torture and provoke me. You exploit and bully my soul. You are the demon, a devil, a monster of your very own. You backstab me when I sit and work. You try to impress our neighbors for business, greed, profit, forever advertising on your self-defense karate school cookbook. Respect is what you try to sell, but everyone knows you're a big bully. Poke my eyes out when I try to sleep. Let's call Mo and Curly. encouraging your students to do the same in a big hurry, to terrorize people of color for confidence, learning, and play. What a big creep. You're driving out minorities from your workplace, neighborhood, street, trying to act cool like you're doing good, the authority of residential zoning and real estate distribution crook, snook, took. Liberate our souls, liberate our freedom, backstab my soul, incarcerate our kingdom, deny us money, deny us freedom, backstab my soul, torture and mislead them, backstab my soul, take away our freedom. You target those who threaten your image, those who you envy, those who know enough to discredit your big belly, camouflaging the attack. Cheap shots around the clock in darkness while wearing black. Bedroom terror horror show is what you really sell? Could it be? Training for human trafficking, slavery at my front door bell. Training your armies of white knights, criminalizing your opponents when they do the same. Pimpology has many colors, but the dark ones are the only ones who really pay. Exposing the truth about war, crime at every angle, and never-ending battle of exploitation. Making America the battlefield of love, giving it a bad name forever. Segregations. Romantics have gotta be insane. Psychological accusations of a mental illness worst kind. You're crazy to accuse. Every time we testify we lose. Even if we know how to rhyme. It is our dark skin that locks the bars around our souls. Incarcerated at birth, even if we steal everything from your Liberation Proclamation store, free bird. Liberate our souls, liberate our freedom, backstab my soul, incarcerate our kingdom, deny us money, deny us freedom, backstab my soul, torture and mislead them, backstab my soul, take away our freedom. Respect is what you try to sell, but everyone knows you're a big bully. Poke my eyes out when I try to sleep, it's called Mo and Curly. Encouraging your students to do the same in a big hurry, to terrorize people of color for confidence, learning, and play. What a big creep. You're driving out minorities from your workplace, neighborhood, street, trying to act cool like you're doing good, the authority of residential zoning and real estate distribution crook, snook, took. Liberate our souls, liberate our freedom, backstab my soul, incarcerate our kingdom, deny us money, deny us freedom, backstab my soul, torture and mislead them, backstab my soul, take away our freedom.
American citizens, along with the Foundation, have been asking the IRS to specifically provide them with the underlying legal foundation upon which they administer and enforce the personal income tax laws in our country.
At the national level, when people would attempt to contact somebody of a much higher authority, say the commissioner, same kind of thing. They would get answers that were in effect non-answers.
You have to understand that an agency which will unlawfully impose a tax that doesn't exist is not going to care. If we, the people, don't know what our rights are, they're not going to tell us.
If Americans just learned that the IRS was actually knowingly deceiving them, that would be enough for them to rise up and put a stop to it.
100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt. All individual income tax revenues are gone before 1 nickel is spent on the services taxpayers expect from government. People have been told, that you need this income tax system to fund government, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, my question is, well, if that's true, how did we fund government from 1776 to 1913?
The main purpose of the income tax is not to raise revenue, but to redistribute wealth and to control society.
A lot of people might say, well, gee, if there wasn't an income tax, what would happen to education? They don't understand that education is paid for the most part, out of state and local taxes, your property tax. People might say, well, how are we going to build and maintain our highways? If there's no money coming into the government, we need our highways. There is a tax on every gallon of gasoline that people buy. Proceeds from the income tax do not pay for highway construction.
I am curious, though, even as a statesman who's returned to the private sector, I'm sure you've kept an eye on what's going on in the economy of both Minnesota and the U.S. as a whole. And I'm curious how you would tackle some of the challenges that we seem to be facing right now. He brought up the question of entitlements. Where do you stand on that issue?
Well, I'll change the subject and say let's actually get to some real changes and some real issues that you'd get from an independent like me. You want to talk the United States economy, then let's talk taxes. I would abolish the income tax and I would go to a consumption-based national sales tax.
My next guest says abolish all of these agencies. Multiple-time former presidential candidate, libertarian, Dr. Ron Paul is with me now. Dr. Paul, welcome back. We're glad you're here. That is a strong statement to abolish these agencies. What would be in their place?
Oh, the people would get happy. All of a sudden, they'd say less government. The part of the government hasn't been doing us any good. We certainly don't need the IRS. We need to
okay, hang on,
get rid of the income tax.
I just have to ask you, how would we collect taxes? How would we function?
Well, we would function just like we did for 135 years before 1913. You know, we did rather well. But you're right about challenging that, because if you want the government we have today to pay for a runaway welfare system and believe that we're the policemen of the world, oh, no, there won't be enough money. Matter of fact, the income tax hardly even touches the interest, so it's not enough. So that's why they run up debt, borrow money, and then print money. But that's where the problem is. So if you want a good tax system or get rid of the income tax, we have to have a different opinion about the role of government. Today, the role of government is something totally strange from the Constitution, American traditions, because we were supposed to design a system where people had their liberties protected, but not for the government to manage our lives and manage the economy and manage the world economy and be the policeman. No, it wouldn't work, and the income tax isn't solving that problem. That just sort of encourages them.
We should not and we will not respect those who get rich by cheating everybody else. So today I want to send a clear message to every boardroom, every executive suite across America. If you scam your customers, exploit your employees, pollute our environment, or rip off taxpayers, we will find ways to hold you accountable.
That was Hillary Clinton earlier today in Toledo, Ohio, slamming Donald Trump, saying he's not releasing his tax returns because he hasn't paid any income taxes, and the New York Times story basically points to that. However, my next guest says that's not illegal, but the U.S. having even an income tax is. He's former presidential candidate, former Republican Congressman Dr. Ron Paul. He's with me now. How is the income tax unconstitutional?
Well, you know, it was ruled unconstitutional during the Civil War period because there was no explicit authorization for it. Then they came along with the 16th Amendment trying to give it the authority, and some people will argue about that. And it's also arguing on whether the 16th Amendment was legitimately passed. But let's assume that's never going to change. The real unconstitutionality of the tax code and the income tax is the way they collect it, because it is assumed you're guilty until proven innocent, and that turns the Constitution on its head. So it's a method of collecting revenues in a very unconstitutional fashion. I remember in one presidential debate, one of the Republican candidates was sort of lamenting, you know, about half of the people don't pay any income tax. And I said, we're halfway there, because really, if you're living in a free society, the founders didn't intend it. If you had the proper size government, there would be no income.
Days after nationwide protests demanding that you know who finally released those damn tax returns, the White House and Republicans are still sticking to their story. But it is not going over so well anymore. Take a look.
The president is under audit. It's a routine one. It continues. And I think that the American public know clearly where he stands. This was something that he made very clear during the election cycle.
As far as I'm aware, the president says he's still under audit. And he says he's going to release them when they're done.
The president is also right that this was not a secondary or a side issue in the campaign. This is a central issue in the campaign. Hillary Clinton and her campaign repeatedly criticized President Trump for this. And he won despite all that.
In the heart of Washington, D.C., a government agency is closely guarding a document in such high demand that bounties have been placed on the file.
Well, it's the very big tax returns. The biggest, I guarantee you this, the biggest ever in the history of what we're doing.
More than a year after then-candidate Donald Trump said his tax returns would be released, gaining just a glimpse of them has become mission impossible. And now the Internal Revenue Service is increasing security.
We'd always referred to all of the president's returns being in a safe. It turned out it was safe-like in the sense that it was a locked cabinet in a locked room. So one of the things we're going to do, we decided maybe we should actually turn it into a safe in a locked room. And so we'll do that.
And who has access to that room?
I don't know. I don't have access.
John Koskinen retired as commissioner of the IRS this month. He says the agency locked down Trump's digital returns in 2016 and is now focusing on the physical documents.
There's almost no other taxpayer that I can ever remember where there's been this kind of focus on. Isn't there some way we could get a hold of those returns?
One hacking magazine has offered $10,000 to anyone who can get a copy of the president's paperwork. Last year, even WikiLeaks tweeted a request.
What I have here is a copy of Donald Trump's tax returns.
In March, MSNBC got a few pages from a journalist who said he found them in his mailbox.
You don't know who sent it to you.
No.
You didn't solicit it.
Nope.
You didn't ask anybody for it.
Correct.
Still, there's so much more to uncover when it comes to these presidential records.
Is there more information on file at IRS than the presidents actually make available historically?
Yes, oftentimes there are much more voluminous exhibits that usually don't get printed and shared with the public. And so that entire package is what's kept secure.
And security at the IRS is no easy task. Most are not successful, but it's not for lack of trying. One private investigator is currently facing federal charges after allegedly guessing a social security number and attempting to use it to access the president's tax information. In 2015, a so-called cyber mafia used stolen information to pose as taxpayers and access millions of documents on the IRS website, affecting some 720,000 people. As for rogue employees inside the IRS, Koskinen says he's not worried.
We basically have a handful of people who have the keys to the kingdom, as it were, in our IT department. But we have great confidence in those people, and they take that responsibility seriously.
So who could finally make the president's tax returns public? Well, there is one guy.
Joining me now is the reporter David Farenthold from the Washington Post. First, David, congratulations. You have truly led the way reporting on this foundation. Now, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things many people don't feel comfortable with. And there's now this inquiry happening from the Attorney General. But was there anything illegal that you found?
Well, there's a few things that appear to violate tax law. I mean, these are not the kind of things in general people go to jail for, but they are against the law. So in the one case you mentioned already, the Trump Foundation gave a political donation to this group that helped the Florida Attorney General, Pam Bondi. At the time, Pam Bondi's office was considering whether to launch an investigation into Trump University. She asked Trump for a donation, and the donation did come. It came from the Trump Foundation. Now, that is illegal. You can't give a nonprofit can't give a political donation. So that's the thing that Trump has already paid a penalty tax on. But there's a couple other instances where he appears to have violated IRS law. And those are, the law there is that you can't, if you're the manager of a charity, you can't take the money in the charity and use it to buy things for yourself. And so there's two cases so far that I've found where Trump appears to have done that. One is he bought a $12,000 signed football helmet in 2012. And the other was this portrait, a $20,000, 6-foot-tall portrait of Donald Trump himself. In both cases, he bought them at charity auctions and then went back later and paid with his charity's money.
Also, walk me through. People assume that a family office, a family foundation, is a wealthy family's own money, and they're then giving it away. Help me understand, since 2008, it wasn't his money? He got a whole lot of money from Vince McMahon from the World Wrestling Federation?
That's right. So Trump starts this foundation in 1987, and for a while, it is actually his money. He's putting his money in. But then by 2006, he's spent away all the money that he has put in. The foundation's down to $4,000. And then after that, it becomes basically a foundation only of other people's money. Trump brings in a bunch of donors, including Vince McMahon, who's the biggest donor. He and his wife gave $5 million. And Trump himself has given a little bit of money in 07, a little bit of money in 08, and nothing since then. So this foundation that he uses, and people often believe is his money because it has his name on the foundation, it's almost all, and all since 2008, somebody else's money.
Well, during the campaign, Mr. Trump said that the Clinton Charitable Foundation was a criminal enterprise. Yesterday, as required, the Trump Foundation released its 2015 tax form, and Juliana Goldman has found that the president-elect's charity is admitting to a violation of its own.
In its most recent tax filing, the Donald J. Trump Foundation said that in 2015, it transferred income or assets to a disqualified person, and that it also did so in previous years. Translation, the foundation gave money to someone it shouldn't have.
I give a lot of money to people and charities and everything. I love people.
The form posted to the charity database GuideStar doesn't detail specific violations. But during the campaign, the Washington Post first reported, and CBS verified, that Mr. Trump violated an IRS rule by using his foundation for his own benefit. In one example, a man was denied prize money after scoring a hole-in-one at Mr. Trump's Westchester golf course. He sued, and the foundation ultimately gave $158,000 to his charity. To help settle another lawsuit, the foundation contributed $100,000 in 2007 to a military charity after the city of Palm Beach sued Mr. Trump's Mar-a-Lago club for putting up a large flagpole. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman has since opened an investigation. Foundations that report these so-called self-dealing violations typically pay a penalty tax and repay the money. Several tax attorneys told us it's common for private foundations to report that they unintentionally violated self-dealing rules, but in this case, the president-elect is admitting to wrongdoing after a series of news reports. Scott Trump representatives did not respond to our requests for comment.
Juliana Goldman in our Washington newsroom. Juliana, thank you.
And it was Donald Trump's money or his donors. What exactly were they doing with it? We know Hillary Clinton, we know that the Clinton Foundation has been under massive scrutiny, but we've also seen independent organizations give them an A+, the Clinton Foundation, in terms of rating, and have said if she wasn't running for president, you could look at this foundation as a standalone, as one of the greatest humanitarian efforts in history. This comes from the Charity Watch president. What exactly has the Trump Foundation given their money to, whether it's Donald's money or not?
Well, first of all, I should say there's not very much money in it. There's never been that much money in it. The most money it's ever had is about $3 million, and that was in 2009 after Vince McMahon's gift. And it doesn't have any staff. The Trump Foundation doesn't employ anybody who actually does charitable giving and charitable work out in the world. Instead, they just take money in and pass it out to a variety of other charities, usually in pretty small amounts, so $5,000 to $50,000. And you look at those gifts, and you don't really see some sort of deep and abiding cause. No gifts to, big gifts to Trump's alma mater, gifts to cancer research, something like that. The thing that stands out is that these gifts are often tied to Trump's business life and his social life. Trump owns a club in Palm Beach, the Mar-a-Lago Club, which can make about $275,000 in one night renting itself out to charities. So he needs to be in the good graces of the charities of Palm Beach. And so you often see him using this Donald J. Trump Foundation filled with other people's money. You see him giving donations to the charities that do business with him. One great example is the Friends of the German American Hall of Fame. They inducted Donald Trump into their own Hall of Fame. He charged them tens of thousands of dollars to rent the room. He gave them a $1,000 donation, even on the night he's inducted into their Hall of Fame, from other people's money.
Interesting. Interesting. David, good reporting. David Farnhold.
Did you pay your taxes this year? If you did, you are a sucker. Here are 3 clever and completely legal ways to give the tax man the slip. The option. An executive is negotiating his employment contract for the coming years. The company might offer millions in shares, but who wants to pay taxes on millions in shares? Better to take options. Gains from non-qualified stock options, the most common form, aren't taxed until the holder exercises them. That means the executive controls when and whether the tax bill comes. it isn't just icing either. Often, it's the cake. Larry Ellison, CEO of Oracle, earned $1 in salary in 2013 and was awarded $76,893,600 in options. The estate tax eliminator. A wealthy parent with millions invested in the stock market wants to leave future earnings to his kids, but he wants to avoid the estate tax on those earnings. And who doesn't? Step 1. The parent sets up a grantor retained annuity trust, or GRAT, and lists the kids as beneficiaries. Step 2. The parent contributes, say, $100 million to the GRAT. Step 3. Profit. Whatever return the money earns in excess of interest remains in the trust and gets passed on to the heirs free of estate and gift taxes forever. The no-sale sale. Say an executive has $200 million of company shares. He wants cash, but he doesn't want to pay the $30 million or so in capital gains taxes for selling. The executive borrows about $200 million from an investment bank and uses the shares as collateral. Now he has cash. To freeze the value of the collateral shares, he buys and sells options, granting him the right to buy and sell the shares later at a fixed price. If he ends up keeping the cash, he has to hand over the shares, but the tax bill comes years after the initial borrowing, and his money has been working for him the whole time.
Current IRS commissioner is facing impeachment as members of the House could call for a vote on his dismissal as early as Tuesday. Back in July, before Congress went into its August recess, a member of the conservative House Freedom Caucus introduced the resolution. One America's John Hines has more from Washington.
If Louisiana Congressman John Fleming has his way, the House could be voting next week on whether or not to impeach IRS Commissioner John Koskinen. And Fleming says House Speaker Paul Ryan has signaled that he will not stand in the way.
Our plan is for me to, again, introduce a privileged resolution to begin impeachment proceedings because the American people feel that the Commissioner of the IRS, John Koskinen, should lose his job. And the Speaker's already signaled that he's going to do nothing to stand in our way to accomplish this.
Fleming says IRS employee Lois Lerner used the IRS to target conservative groups, and Koskinen may have mishandled proof of Lerner's involvement.
John Koskinen was brought in to clean things up, but in fact, when he got there, though he promised and guaranteed Congress itself that he would protect all of the incriminating evidence, he actually allowed it to be destroyed. 422 tapes, 24,000 emails, and then he came to Congress and said, whoops, I'm sorry, it was all destroyed. Well, he lied to us then again, because we found out the Inspector General actually found much of that evidence was actually available.
Fleming did not say specifically that he is acting on behalf of the House Freedom Caucus, but Jason Pye of FreedomWorks says the House Freedom Caucus would like to see the IRS commissioner held accountable.
FreedomWorks has 5.7 million activists. They want the IRS commissioner held accountable for lying. He should lose his job. End of story. And I think the House Freedom Caucus understands that. I think that they get that. I think that they are the few who are among the very small few members of conservative members of Congress, or at least Republican members of Congress, who are willing to see that end result, who want to see that end result regardless of election year politics. This is something that should transcend election year politics.
Fleming says other government officials should be pursued, including Hillary Clinton and Eric Holder. He says Americans are frustrated with what they perceive as corruption and incompetence among high-level officials in Washington. John Hines, One America News, Washington.